Welcome to another great edition of Beacons of Light. Joining me today is Claudia Ramirez, a colleague, a fellow CEO in the Society. Tell everybody where you're from.
Well, I'm from the Bay Area in Northern California, so we're about 30 miles east of San Francisco. And Contra Costa County is the council that I am privileged to lead.
How did you start? How long have you been doing it?
Well, I've been a Vincentian for 13 years, which is how I got started with the Society. But I've been the executive director for a little over 6 years now.
That's great.
So it's been an interesting time, but truly where I'm supposed to be.
No doubt. What invited you first to become a Vincentian?
It was after my mother had passed, and I knew that I wanted to do something. She always gave of her time, and I happened to have two aunts at the time who were her sisters and living in Florida who were active in the St. Vincent de Paul conference there. And I said, oh, I'll try this Vincentian thing because I'd like to serve the poor. And once I started with our conference and I got to experience the spirituality side of being a Vincentian, it's what felt to my heart that this is where I needed to be. And since then, I still, work actively or volunteer actively as a Vincentian, and do home visits and see our neighbors in need. But at the time that I started with the Society as ED, our previous ED had resigned, and 3 of my fellow Vincentians were on the board, and they looked at me and they knew I had quit my job in industry because I knew it wasn't right for me anymore, but I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And they said, hey, can you come help us out for a few months while we look for somebody? And I guess the devil you know versus the one you don't, and they kept me on. So I've been around now for over 6 years leading the organization, and really it's been a privilege to do so because I get to just live what I'm supposed to be doing, live my vocation.
Isn't it great?
It
As
is.
a professional, you get to live your career and your faith all at the same time.
It's a blessing.
It's not like working in industry. Totally opposite, right?
Very different. Very different. Not that I don't take the skills that I brought from that, because we run stores, we run certain entities that are similar to, but in a different way.
Right.
As Vincentians.
Right. And our decisions are based on our Vincentian mission and ministry. So, the Holy Spirit's always a factor in that algorithm, right?
Definitely.
The decision-making algorithm.
Definitely. Right? We just always have to remember to listen to that, because we get caught up sometimes in the we should versus the no, this is what we need to do. This is what God calls us to do.
Well, you are also the lead of our task force, CEO task force for the country, and you've been that for a while now. What have you seen in your colleagues, your fellow executives, that really help you in your spiritual journey and growth?
Well, it's interesting. We actually started an executive director prayer group a few months ago, and we're trying to get that off and running. But it's just really seeing how we can be Catholic at work. A lot of, it's still not always, in favor, as particularly in California, where I live, to necessarily show your faith and live your faith so openly. And it's so refreshing that we get to do that. A lot of the CEOs, I've learned a lot, and also have seen a lot that we share good information about how to be better Vincentians and better leaders. Because we're leading a lot of volunteers. I mean, yes, some of us have staff. We have stores, so we have staff there, and other administrative staff. But there are a lot who rely very heavily on volunteers. Some that have huge staffs because they have big housing projects and things like that require that. So it's how do we balance that with our Vincentian mission?
It's always a balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take those leaps of faith sometime, huh?
Yep. And it's interesting because a lot of our employees aren't Catholic. Most of them are Christian, but not all. And how they embrace the mission, not necessarily knowing the Catholic foundations of it, but still knowing that they're serving.
And that's sometime in today's world, I find it's a little bit harder to get people to recognize that mission. Once they do and they understand, then you have a Vincentian staff member that is doing the work of the society in an exemplary manner.
Exactly, exactly. At least more than half of my staff has a longer tenure there than I do. I've got some people there 25 plus years. And, I will argue the point all day with somebody who tells me they're not Vincentians, even though technically they're not Catholic or anything and don't fit the rule, but true to the heart they are.
Well, the Vincentian mission is a powerful one. And like you said, you don't have to be Catholic to live that mission. And you've seen it in action. And you've also seen that unity among executives when we come together at the mid-year meeting or the National Assembly. Why is that connection important?
I think that connection is important because we are, like you said, not like normal corporate America, and we don't run that way. So that we get to share our ideas and our successes and our failures and our challenges with each other, knowing that there are others out there like us. And even, some of the other nonprofits, they're different, even trying to explain that to somebody else, they're like, oh, but you still go out and see people. I said, yes, many of us still are active in our Vincentian service as well as our ED and leadership business side of things. I tell people I wear two hats. I'll take off the executive director hat, but I won't ever take off the Vincentian hat. So.
Yeah, and that's true. You got two hats on, because once you put that Vincentian hat on, it never comes off, does it?
That's right. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. If anything, it just gets melded on there even stronger. So, like I mentioned, my aunt, she's been a Vincentian for 37 years. So
powerful, no doubt about it.
91 and still helping.
With about 45 seconds to go, what would your message be to the audience about joining the society and really becoming a part of our ministry?
I think you need to want to be connected more to Christ. And listen to that voice inside you. Listen to the Holy Spirit, because that's who will guide you there. Ask to find out a little bit more, and you'll know if it's right for you. Be open to that. And I think that's how we grow the society, and that's how we strengthen our service, our faith, and our friendship.
Well, Claudia, thank you for the excellent job you do, both at a local level and then at a national level. Thank you for all your support through the years, and we appreciate you out in the field.
Thank you, Michael, and continued success with this great program that you have.
Well, thank you, Claudia. We hope you enjoyed this segment. When we come back, we're going to talk to another powerful Vincentian, someone that's going to share the vibrancy of our organization and really kind of give a good glimpse of why you need to become a part of our Society of St. Vincent de Paul. We'll be right back. For over 20 years, the St. Vincent de Paul Community Pharmacy has served our area. We provide prescription medicines for those who have nowhere to turn for this most basic healthcare need. Please, if you need your medicine or you know a family member that needs their medicine, contact us. Kay, how can they get in touch?
383-7450.
Give us a call today and spread the word so that we can ensure no one goes without their prescription medication. Welcome back. I've got another wonderful Vincentian, Tom Pelger, who is the Vice President of Regional and Council Support. What does that mean, Tom?
Well, basically, the society at a national level, we have 9 regional vice presidents that provide support to the councils and conferences and Vincentians in a portion of the U.S. So there's roughly 183 dioceses in the U.S., so each of those 9 regional vice presidents has about 20 dioceses that they support. And I'm just there to help mentor and guide, help them to learn from each other, connect the dots, share best practices. so that they can be better supporters to the Vincentians in that part of the country.
And what makes you perfect for this role is you were a regional vice president.
I was, right.
And what region was that?
I covered the North Central region, which was essentially North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and Illinois.
So you don't know nothing about winters, do you?
Well, it was about 25 below last week, with the wind chill.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's interesting how different regions have different challenges, whether it's cold in the north, the heat was blistering down here in the south this summer. You have to be ready to respond and mentor those different regions. And how do you do that? And how does faith play a role in that?
Well, I guess first thing, we're all trying to respond to people in need. And while the needs may vary somewhat, there may be a different seasonality to them in different parts of the country, the human need is the same wherever you go. And what may differ a little bit is the structure of the resources you have available to bring. So it's how do you marshal the resources that you have, which is in many cases largely volunteers. I come from my home diocese. We have no stores, no staff. It's all parish donor funded, all individual Vincentian volunteers that are doing all the work. And so every not only region, but every places within the region has their own structural differences. The need may be the same of the people we serve, but how the resources we bring to be able to address that and the way we organize to serve it varies quite a bit. We're very much, while we're part of an international structure, it's got the same mission, same charism, we are very local in the way we practice. It's every individual conference.
Though?
Yeah, it's where there's not a lot of bureaucracy.
Right.
It's very much bottoms up.
Right.
Now, it may take some challenge sometime to actually move all that to action to get everybody headed in the common direction, but that's also it's a strength.
Right. And when you see one St. Vincent de Paul, you've really only seen one St. Vincent de Paul group, right?
that is very true.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Oh, it's
great. Because we each Vincentian brings their own gifts to it. And really, is when I think about when we talk about recruiting people to the society, while they all share the Catholic faith, in their individual talents and interests vary. So in many cases, it's a matter of having a diversity of services available so we can call the right people from our churches into our conferences in order to perform the service that is not only in line with the people we serve's needs, but also with what we're called individually to do.
Well, Connie Stewart was on the show a few shows ago, and we were talking about, and I just proposed this to her. I said, what a boring world it would be if we were all the same.
Oh, yeah, it is.
And, she had a brilliant answer, as Connie always does. And it was talking about the strength of diversity, how we're all God's children, how we all bring something priceless to the table. That's what you see when you were regional VP, but now in this important new role, you see that up front.
Sure, yeah. So what I'm just trying to do is try to help the people that are supporting each of those regions and the conferences and councils within them to be able to match those talents and gifts up to the needs that we're trying to meet.
The most important question I'm going to ask you, what got you involved with our Vincentian family? Well,
I'm a kind of an action doer guy. And so when I retired, I don't do idle very well. And a friend, a colleague from work knew I was retiring and got in touch with me several months before I was scheduled to retire to say, hey, I got something you could do. And so I got involved first thing at the individual conference level, doing home visits, still do that now 14 years later, but very quickly became the council president for Central Illinois, and then regional vice president, served on the National Finance Committee, the Systemic Change Task Force, Strategic Planning Committee. I guess one of my gifts is I can help to organize people and things,
And that's powerful, and I think also powerful. You don't have idle. That's most Vincentians. They seem to kind of keep it in gear, though.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're all tend to be action oriented.
Yeah.
But grounded in our faith.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very hard, I think, to live the Christian life by yourself.
Oh God, yes.
You need the strength and support from others that are trying to follow that difficult journey to the Lord. Mm-hmm. And in conferences, in national gatherings, in regional gatherings, you draw the inspiration and fire from the influence and the inspiration of those other Vincentians. And that helps, at least me, I know, become more true to myself, become truer to my Christian calling. It's a way to kind of put faith into action.
Powerful. The Vincentian spiritual journey is a powerful one, and it's a gift that we need to share with others. What would your message be, with about 1 minute and 10 seconds to go in the segment, to people that are thinking they may be getting a pull to the society, but they're kind of scared? It's outside their comfort zone.
Well, I mean, first thing, as others have said, I think it's important to give it a try to see. But there is something actually very powerful in moving away from what we're comfortable with into a point of discomfort, because the change and growth comes out of that discomfort. I mean, for those of us that have been blessed to live a fairly comfortable lifestyle, the idea of going to that other part of town and going into someone's home seems challenging, seems a bit scary sometimes. But you find the welcome you receive and that experience of not only trying to be Christ to those we serve, but actually to see Christ in them, to see the challenges that people are facing, but oftentimes the very powerful faith they have is very humbling, and to me keeps my faith burning, and I think it's an opportunity for others.
Well, thank you for sharing that Vincentian fire with the audience today. When we come back, we're going to have another Vincentian that is on fire for our society, Brian Burgess, when we come back. The Society of St. Vincent de Paul's first cookbook, Taste and See, is the gift which helps share the goodness of the Lord with those most in need. Featuring recipes from Chef John Foles, each chapter begins with a short story about one of our special work programs. To order your copy of Taste and See, please call the Society or visit our website. Help multiply blessings for the neediest in our community. Welcome to this segment with Brian Burgess. Brian, you're fellow Louisianian Vincentian.
I am so happy to be here.
We're excited to have you. You've played a lot of national leadership roles, and now you're in a new leadership role. Share that with the audience, what you're doing for the society.
I am on all the boards. I am on the National Council Board and the Liaison to all of our subsidiary organizations. So our National Council has 3 subsidiaries, which is our foundation, our stores, and our Disaster Services Corporation. And for the DSC, Disaster Services Corporation, or DSC, I'm also the chairman of that board.
Excellent. That's a lot on your plate.
That's a lot on the plate.
A lot of meetings.
A lot of meetings, but it's all right, because every time I'm with a group of Vincentians, even if it's just a regular old meeting, it's a wonderful experience.
Well, share that with because I know when you joined the society, you didn't join it for meetings, but talk about the friendship within our society, and whether it's a national board or a local conference, why that's so very important in our spiritual growth.
It really is, because as Vincentians, our primary focus is on our own spiritual growth. And it's not something we can do all by ourselves. And I believe the Society of St. Vincent de Paul puts a unique, within the Catholic Church, spin on how can you grow in your salvation. It's your spiritual growth, it's your fellowship and your friendship, and it's in your service. And the society combines all three of those. And what I have experienced in my previous role on the National Council, I was vice president, and Ralph Middlecamp was our president, and he asked me to spearhead the strategic plan development for his term. We did a survey of Vincentians, and two very interesting points came out of that. Is we asked, as your Vincentian, what drew you to the society? 70%, over 70% said they wanted to do good works, which is not surprising. People look at St. Vincent de Paul and want to do some good. About 4% talked about faith and spirituality. We asked the second question in that survey, give us 2 reasons you stayed in the society. About 75% still on the good works. 60% was on faith and spirituality. So that number went from 4 to 60%. So a lot of people join us with just thinking, we'll work in the thrift store or the food pantry or do home visits. And that's wonderful. But they begin to experience the growth in spirituality that is evident in the society. And that, when I ask people to join the society, it's that grace that we have of the Holy Spirit working in the society. Come join us and experience that, and you'll find your calling.
The gift and charism of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. Well put. I mean, that's what our society is all about, is that friendship, that spiritual growth, that action.
Right.
But you got to connect it all, right?
Right. You do, and again, I think that's what's unique about the society, is that we do that. The way we were, founded 190 years ago by a college student and his friends, and they were challenged. You talk about being a Catholic. What do you do? And the answer that they came up with is, we go to the poor.
Right.
And so that's what we still do 190 years later in 150 countries around the world. So we're a lot more than a lot of people think, frankly. And we're a lot more than, again, like I said, working in the thrift store or the food pantry, or, a couple people in the back of church helping the poor. And that unique intersection we have, that grace guided by the Holy Spirit and divine providence, that's what's kept us going, and that's what informs and compels us as Vincentians to do what we do, which is to serve those in need. And we find it's not just us that bring Christ to those we serve. We find that's where Christ is, the suffering Christ. And when you experience that as a Vincentian, your life changes.
In a really true sense, everyone's searching for Christ. If you become a member of the Vincentian family, you find Him.
This is absolutely a wonderful way to find Christ in a very experiential manner. It's a lot more than just going to Mass on Sunday, sitting in the pews and just sort of hearing the Word. This gives you a way to actually experience Christ. We go to Mass, we have the Eucharist, so we experience Christ that way. This is another way to do it.
In a way that just, the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit.
Yeah.
That spirit, that poverty of spirit, and the society is where that poverty, you can grow spiritually. But, I've heard Vincentians say before, the more you grow spiritually, the more you know you have to grow.
it is a lifelong journey. And I think that's what, broadly speaking, our Catholic faith is that way. You know, that we don't all of a sudden one day figure it all out and say, oh, that's it, we're done. That salvation journey that we have, it's something that we live every day. And again, as a Vincentian, it's just a wonderful way to do that, to live out the gospel values, the things that you read Jesus saying, you can live them out in this point. And knowing, you're talking about the Beatitudes and other things of Jesus, though, you know, whatever you do for the least of those, he didn't say those people, or, you know, he said, you do to me.
Right.
To Christ.
That's
himself.
right.
And that's what we do. It's what we see.
Well, with about a minute and a half to go, I shared something with Connie Stewart that was here earlier, and she, Deacon Eula Simeon, who was, before he was ordained, was a Vincentian just like you and me, a conference Vincentian, and he was inspired to become a deacon because of his work within the society. But on the show, we were visiting, and he does a lot of ministry at our shelters for those experiencing homelessness. And one of the things, Brian, that he said is, you know, Michael, we shouldn't be so focused on our salvation. We should be focused on the salvation of others. And when you think about that, if you focus on the salvation of others, isn't that a roadmap to your own salvation?
Absolutely. That's beautiful and well put. We cannot, and we should not, and we cannot do it alone. God doesn't want, he created us to be social beings, and our own path to salvation is in conjunction and coordination with others, with those we serve, in the society, and our fellow Vincentians, our fellow Catholics, non-Catholics, who it doesn't matter. It's we're all doing this together. We're all inspired by those gospel values that Jesus gave us to live that out. And we do it together, and we help each other.
And that's what it's all about. Well,
it's what it's all about. And I really think the society has got the perfect answer to actually how to execute that.
And you are executing it in such a phenomenal fashion. Thank you, Brian, for all you do. I think all the guests today's show were fantastic and great examples of our Vincentian mission. If you'd like to join the society, you can do so. Get more information at svdpusa.org or our local website, svdpbr.org. We'll see you again next week on Beacons of Light.